Hey, what's going on? Jared Lowry here. I am a guitar player from a little town in Oklahoma called Stroud. I've been playing in Oklahoma City, though, and the surrounding areas for about 7 years now. And during that time, I've, learned a lot about, my preferred gear, my preferred, amplifiers, preferred effects, preferred guitars, that kind of thing. And I thought I would just take this time to kind of share with everybody my experience and kind of what's helped me out. Now, everyone's different, so this may not work for you. It's only worked for me, and I'm just sharing my own personal experience with everything. So today, I wanted to talk about this really cool amp that I got from Headrush. And it is just a little tiny, almost like a PA-powered speaker. And it is called let me see if I can remember the name, Headrush FR FR 108. And it is about 2,000 watts of power. And it's a very loud amp, and you can get a lot of power out of it. It's been very reliable for me on a couple of occasions, but wanted to kind of share with you my overall experience as I gigged with this thing. So anyway, let's dive in.
Okay, so here's a Headrush FR FR 108. Here's the front. It's been used quite a bit, so there's a little bit of some scratches and stuff like that. So forgive that. But anyway, the front here, it's got the logo. It's got a little handle right here, which is very convenient. And it's got another on the other side too. Now you can lay it down like this, or you can lay it, vertically as well. It doesn't really matter. Here's the back. There's two inputs here, which is kind of cool. I have a little stereo rig that I use, so that comes in handy. This is, volume 2, volume 1, self-explanatory. You got a couple of 1/4 inch inputs in here. You got this XLR output, which is pretty handy. And then you got this contour, which that's to kind of help with the, contour's up here. Got this contour, which kind of helps with the high to mid kind of thing. Kind of balances out the frequencies. This is a ground, which that comes in handy too. It's kind of a grounding switch. I don't know a whole lot about it. I've never used it, but I'm sure in certain situations it'll come in handy. Now, this thing is 2,000 watts. Okay, that's loud. And it's a flat response. So that pretty much means that if you're using any kind of amp modeling equipment or anything like that, it should go, it should be a really nice companion to this. So anyway, now I'll just talk a little bit about the experience.
So, good to bad. It's a good amp. I like it. It's done its job for me. It's helped me out quite a bit with, with gigs and stuff like that. Like, I would do a couple of solo gigs in Stillwater, and I had a hollow body that I would use for these, it was like a cocktail party kind of thing. It was just me and a trumpet player, and we would just kind of do a duet kind of thing. And I would bring this along with me just because it was easier to carry. And I had the option, I could just set it down on the floor next to me, or I could put it on a stand or anything like that. And it worked fine. It did real well. It's loud. It's very loud. It's 2,000 watts. It better be loud. It's very loud. It can get very, very loud, and I've used it for numerous amounts of gigs. I did it one time. I used this amp during a show with a singer in Oklahoma City at a place called VZD's, and it was the first time I ever used it. And so I was anxious to kind of see how it would, sound and how it would perform. The thing was so loud, like they kept asking me to turn down. And here was just this little tiny amp compared to all the other guys, like the bass player. And it was loud enough to keep up with a drummer. I was really impressed. The downside of it is that I think I noticed a couple times when I would play, there would be and I think it's more of me. I think it's more of my issue. But whenever I would play, the peak would, there's a light on here that will tell you if you're pushing it too hard, and it'll turn red. It'll turn green if it's where it needs to be at, but when it starts turning red, that's when it's like you're pushing it too hard. So there would be times where, I'd be playing with a band that just didn't know that much about dynamics or something like that. They wouldn't be able to kind of keep it down. or we'd just be playing a really loud show, it wasn't the best for like really aggressive in your face type of music, you know. I do have a couple of clips of me playing it with my own band, doing fusion stuff, like jazz fusion and jazz rock, whatever you want to call it, where I do a lot of like, you know, the soloing that I do that you hear. But, and honestly, I thought it did okay. But I could definitely tell a sound difference between when I mess with this one and then when I mess with the Roland that I've got. But I would say for like a practice amp, it's a good practice amp. And I think that if you're doing solo gigs or if you're doing a trio, for example, a trio would be perfect. This amp would be fantastic. I have another PA powered speaker that I like to use with my Zoom pedal, and I can't remember the name of it, but I've had that for a couple of years now, and it's louder than this. It's actually like 3,000 watts, but it's a PA power speaker, and it gets the job done. And you know, the other thing too I've noticed is you really got to know how to dial in the sound on here. There's no EQ on this, so because there's no EQ, you really kind of have to adjust the frequencies and stuff like that in your rig, and that kind of can be a downside if you're a tone junkie and you want to get it to where it needs to be at. So that's the downside of there's no EQ, and that's kind of what the contour is for. If you want it brighter, if you want it dark, you know, you can kind of adjust it on that. But for my experience, I mean, honestly, for the money, gets the job done. It's nice to have, like if you're just practicing or something like that. And I have a purpose that I use for this, which I'll probably talk about in another video. But overall, I would say Headrush FR FR. If you're just looking for if you're looking for something for like a small gig or something like that, it's a good amp. I would recommend it. If you're looking for a practice amp, this is a good amp too. It doesn't take up too much space at all. It just kind of sits there. It can get quiet and it can get loud. So that's what I'm saying. Like if you're having a trio, this should do really well. It's great for jazz guys. You know, same thing for if you're using your effects pedals too. It'll work out really well. It's a great complement to the Headrush model that they've got, the foot unit. It's a real good complement to that. So anyway, that's the Headrush. Hope this helps. This has just been my experience with it. It's been a pretty good amp. I've liked it. I've enjoyed it. I don't use it for certain gigs, so you just kind of have to know which situation it might work in, which one it might not work in. So anyway, hope this helps.